talk about now the amazing performance of Judit Polgár, winning the Hungarian Super Championship ahead of world-class grandmasters. And you heard that right, we're talking world-class here. So that was one of the most famous and best organized Hungarian championships for a long time. And somehow, Lord knows how, I guess that there was very heavy sponsorship involved in that business. They managed to persuade the absolute very top to participate in that tournament. And so the field actually looked like this. We had the Polgár sisters for starters. How do you get the tournament information on ChessBase? I want to show you guys the the cross table, and I found it. Oh, okay, wait. All right, so I have got a cross table here. So the following people played in the tournament. I need to tell you this. So Judit Polgár, rated back in the day 2550. She was 14.5, by the way. Susan Polgár, 2535. We're talking about 1991. So anybody who was near 2600 was likely to be top 20 in the world, but at least top 30. Yeah. Then we had Gyula Saks, world champion candidate, an absolute legend, one of the most vicious attacking players ever to touch pieces in Hungary. József Horváth, a very talented grandmaster. Lajos Portisch, world champion candidate, fourth highest rated player in the world at the peak of his career, an absolute legend. Péter Lukács, one of the best known Hungarian theoreticians ever lived. Tibor Tolnai, an amazingly talented young grandmaster. Attila Grosspeter, another amazingly talented grandmaster, and Ivan Farago, a very famous veteran even back at the time. That was the oh, and Andras Adorjan, yet another world champion candidate, very famous among many other things for his book Black is Okay, in which he talks in detail about why it is totally cool to play with black. So the only big gun, from what I can tell, who was missing from the tournament was Zoltán Ribli, world champion candidate. Peter Leko wasn't playing, but back at this stage, he wasn't still the big gun. He later on went to become the big dude. So let's have a look at the actual games of this tournament in chronological order. So round one sees Judit Polgár playing against her sister, which I'm pretty sure that was actually a directed draw, which they do a lot of the times, and I think it's a very smart idea to do in close tournaments when there are siblings playing, that they actually manipulate the draw so that they play first round. And that is basically just to preempt unnecessary suspicions if they manipulate the result. And so the game we are looking at is a prearranged draw, 99.9%. A Maróczy bind, a very famous main line Maróczy bind. I would like to still... Oh, that was Susan Polgár that you are talking about, Galdur. That was a really, really epic game. So here one thing I would like to tell you or show you, even though we are looking at a game that was a prearranged draw, is that here knight d7 is a very common strategy, because black actually wants to trade dark squared bishops. So a lot of people live in this misbelief in regards to the Maróczy bind, that this dark squared bishop is everything that black has and that's the best piece. Not at all. In the absence of these two bishops, actually black has a very cool strategy that is based on an idea of taking this and then playing, well, basically having a bad bishop good knight scenario is ideal. Actually, sorry, this is how it works. So knight c5, I'll show you an ultimate scenario, or best case scenario for white, or black, sorry, when this happens. So this is what black really wants in the long run, and in order to achieve this, the trade of the dark squared bishop is desired, and that's why white actually says no thank you. And so this is a big theoretical line. Even up to here it's theory when the players agreed on draw. Usually the computer, as you will see in a second, claims a large white advantage, but it can be very deceiving because this assessment is heavily based on the large space advantage, which often the computer fails to associate with a very strong plan. And so I think that this was just an easy draw between two sisters. So, thank you, gorgeous. I just got some tea, folks. So, cheers. Second round. Judit Polgár against Portisch. A super interesting encounter, and one that had a very great impact, in fact, on the outcome of the tournament, because as you would expect, Portisch was, even though he was already, well, I wouldn't want to use the word old, but his career was nearing its end, he was still an extremely fearsome warrior. So let's see, I actually don't remember this game. The opening is the Neopausen or the Khan, which was Portisch's main weapon alongside the Najdorf. And Judit plays bishop d3, and Portisch responds with this very unusual b6. So usually this setup leads into a Maróczy bind again by white playing knight f6, black playing knight f6 castles. Note that e5 here loses to check. So castles, queen c7, and here white usually forces black to play d6 by playing queen e2. And when d6 comes, white can play c4 followed by knight c3 and entering the previously mentioned Maróczy bind, which is recognized by these two pawn moves. So, here Portisch plays b6. Nowadays this move would be frowned upon because it actually allows white to achieve the ideal Maróczy bind without having to put the queen here. b5 is not good here because it allows white to provoke some weakening on the queen side. So black ideally wants to hold this until a knight comes on c3. No, the pawn on c4 does not block the bishop in because it's far more important that we gain space, and also the bishop is more than likely wanting to operate this way rather than this way. And the gains with the c4, the associated gains with c4 heavily outweigh the negatives. Like, you can hardly claim that this is blocked in because the pawn is technically still mobile, but now we are dominating the middle. Anyway, she plays castles, bishop b7, f4. Now this is very typical of Judit, especially the young Judit, by the way correctly pronounced in Hungarian as Judit, is that she doesn't necessarily want to go into a Maróczy bind, which would turn the game into a more positional nature. Instead, she wants to enter some kind of Scheveningen structure. Say black plays d6. I bet my life on it she wouldn't have played c4 but knight c3 and enter a kind of Scheveningen attack setup. Portisch plays bishop c5 and she responds with c3. Interesting choice. I don't see anything wrong with bishop e3, but it's okay. Knight c6, bishop e3, knight f6, and queen e2. I would have thought that knight d2 was a little bit more natural, but I guess queen e2 is also fine. Queen c7 and knight d2. So both sides have completed development. Black, somewhat traditionally to his style, tries to hold the pawn back, because d6 would basically shut the bishop outside of this pawn chain, which is unwanted, and sometimes the queen can be useful on this diagonal. On the other hand, what this means is that black constantly needs to be on the lookout of e5, although right now knight d5 would be very pleasant. Castles, king h1, a very typical operation in the Sicilian to remove yourself from this diagonal. Thank you very much, Nightmare31 blah blah blah. Couldn't read your name for the follow. So yeah, removing yourself from the check allows a lot of tactical tricks. Let me show you one that very often is overlooked in the Sicilian. If you play something like b5 and thus making this a loose piece, then knight takes e6 wins on the spot. And the idea is that whatever takes back, we pick off the bishop on c5. Now with the king on g1, this trick wouldn't work, because then bishop takes is a very awkward in-between move, and that's a check, and then you can retake. Okay, rook e8. Now g4, g5, as per us by the chat, is extremely risky here, because black hasn't committed anything to himself in the center, and so there are lots of potential breakouts that could interfere with this attack. e5 is very interesting first up, especially with the rook having arrived on e5, because now I can't push past. And I dare say that after knight c6, I would do as black take, and only then retake here. And now e4 is hurting like mad. So she takes on c6 first to clarify the situation. This comes with a lot of trades. And then she moves over to g3. Now, frankly, I think white has failed entirely. Bot me ping, it's for YouTube as well as for us. Yes, why? White has failed to obtain any opening advantage, and I'm almost beginning to prefer this position for black. The computer agrees with this and claims that the position is equal, dead equal. d6, e5, very aggressive and very committal. Once again, typical Judit style. She just wants to attack at all cost. This is very, very, very committal, because now the mate threat is extremely uncomfortable. That being said, bishop e4 will become a possibility, or any jump to e4 really. So now it's quite realistic to ask who is attacking whom, and it's hard to tell really. But for the time being, white's initiative seems to be growing. Black needs to watch out for checks, which later on could be followed up by this mate pattern. So chooses to take, but again, this is a tough decision to make, because what this move means is that now after the retake, we have got this rook joining the fray. Rook d8, that's the upside from black's point of view. So the really, really awesome dynamic chess is what we observe here, because almost every move you see for either side has an up and a down, and you have to sort of figure out whether we gain or lose more. For example, e5 here was quite cool because it opened up this, it kicked out the defender, but opened up this diagonal. Then black decided to take this, which opens up this this file against the king, but it allows the rook to enter the fray via the open d file, and in fact create an instant game-winning threat with rook takes d3. Rook e1, defending the knight, thus neutralizing rook takes d3. Queen d5. By the way, chat, if I'm going too fast, please ask questions. That's what we are here for. I would like to hear questions, thoughts, concepts, whatever. Share the love. Yes, the d file is obviously more worthy, but not if we manage to break through on the king side first. Knight d6. Another big benefit of having that knight there is that now this horse is attacking lots of different things. And this is an ultimate trademark of a brilliant player, that as soon as this knight lands here, he captures. And also, it's very important for us to note that when Judith played knight d6, she knew that the only reasonable response was rook takes, for a lot of reasons. One, because you can't possibly live with a knight here. It's just such a pesky piece attacking so many things that it's just not tenable to play with that. Queen takes h5. When? Queen takes h5 here, you mean? Yeah, that's an interesting idea actually. But I think it's just a bad endgame after take here and rook takes, yes. Well, actually, no, I take it back. It's not a bad endgame. It's just an equal endgame. But it's a very, very good question. Totally went past it. Ironically, I still prefer black here. Because this e5 pawn is really, really weak. So this plan is going to be still quite pesky. But yeah, very good point actually. That queen h5 was a cool motive there. So she went in. And actually now it seems that white is having the upper hand, despite of the apparent activity that black is going to have, plus the fact that now our attack is gone. So we have got a pawn as black for the exchange. The minor pieces are now becoming quite powerful, and the rooks are looking a little bit iffy. So to win this, we need to play with extreme accuracy, and also we need to trade a few things off. Okay, bishop e4. I think it's vitally important to trade this bishop off. The engine prefers queen e3. I would like to make mention of that. Take, take, and e5. Portisch plays very well here. Yes, I think it's a very good question. Do we want to trade the bishops or not? And I think that the long-term answer is definitely yes. Because no matter where I picture this bishop, it can be nowhere near as effective as its body on the long diagonal. The computer line goes with queen e3. And I don't really understand this move, so I would like to test it out. What if rook here? Bishop e2 and then rook d1. Very interesting. Very interesting. So it seems that instead of trading the bishop instantly, it's far more important to try to obtain the only open file, which of course makes a lot of sense because we are an exchange up. We have the rooks, so we need to get the open file. Now, why can't we go to d1 right away? I suspect we needed to stop knight f4. So queen e3 is actually a defensive measure, but also a centralizing move. Yeah, so now I have got various avenues to utilize the queen along. And so probably bishop e4 was a bit hasty by Judit. And after take, take e5, now there is a knight incoming here. Note that we can't take because of back rank mate. Yes, exactly. So that was a centralizing move, queen e3, like I said. So she plays queen e3 now, but now this makes this look a little bit funny. Rook e6, removing the rook from the pin. Now f5 is becoming an issue. Yes, queen e3 is nice prophylaxis, but I would even rather actually call it just improvement of pieces. And somewhere here I feel that Judit is losing the thread. Queen d7, king g1. Yeah, knight f4 looks very good now. Actually, the computer already claims that this position is even. And I'm not surprised because now the black pieces are coming in and it's just beginning to look good. And see, this shows utter planlessness. So I think I would take this as a draw for almost. Yeah, this rook on the fourth somehow lost meaning. h5, the pawns are rolling up. So the black army here gives you an apparent impression of like a very firm, solid fortress that seems impenetrable, but has the potential to fire out of the fortress, if you will, or shoot out. Whereas white has got an army that is totally scattered, and although numbers-wise or value-wise, technically it's worth more, but in reality they are not doing what they are meant to because they are not obtaining the correct squares or occupying correct squares. Yeah, look, in the last 10 moves, Judit couldn't do anything. Look at the shifting to and fro, and this is actually a sign that she's planless, and playing moves planlessly is very, very dangerous. Note also that we are on move 33, so time trouble could have played a major role. And so Judit turns into aggression again, which is what her forte has been ever since she became a very powerful player. The aggression and the attack is her bread and butter. But here I feel that g4 just ridicules this rook even more. Right, rook e2. Yeah, this looks like she's in severe trouble. Severe trouble. King f8, a mysterious move. So what's gotta go with take, take, and this? Oh, Baba. How is that for a sexy? How is this move for a sexy? That's a breathtaking tactic that was missed in the game. Wow. Now for the record, after rook here, when black takes on here, I do not have to retake. But if I don't, then I just lost the pawn. So the computer's recommendation here is rook d2 or b4. But both of those moves leave in kind of denial. And if I take with the rookerino, knight h5 still wins. Wow! So Portisch actually missed the win here. Some more? What do you want to see, dude? It's over. Queen is on, rook is on. I don't think we need to see more of this. But typically, we are arriving at the most crucial point of the game on move 37. And in case you are unaware, we are playing here the old time trouble rules, which meant that you had to make 40 moves in 2 hours. And now we are on 37 moves, so I bet that time trouble was looming. Yeah, we need a swindler here, and I think swindling away she will be. Here there was no reason not to take this. The reason why Judit played b4 here, swindling attempt incoming, is because she saw that after queen takes she could take this. And now the same tactic doesn't work because this queen is hanging. So the black player would have to take back like this, and that's a little bit of an improvement from white's point of view because there is a sideways pin now and the black pawns have been taken apart, or rather separated from one another. So he dropped back to d6 in order to be able to retake with the knight, I guess. But now that's the trickery, and that's a beautiful save. That is a beautiful save here, that with queen d6, black has moved the queen into the firing range of the rook. So now take and rook takes f6. And now after the retake, once again, the rook will be able to rejoin the fray, and this position is no longer winnable according to the engine, although admittedly, I still prefer black. I still prefer black here, because of the king is very exposed, the knight is a boss, so white has to be extremely careful here. But careful she is, and also know that there are 2 pawns here going against 1. e4, queen e3. Whoa, wait a second. What's going on here against knight h5? Check. Is that it? What am I missing? Knight h5. Oh, baby! Baby, the tacticos! This is why Judit Polgár was the next one to become the youngest grandmaster in the world. Queen a3. What a move, man. Knight here, queen a3, and a totally winning endgame. Because now the king is close enough to these pawns so that it can hold them up without any dramas, and this is unstoppable. Oh my word. This is not a king and pawn ending, buddy. There is no king and pawn here. I mean, queen takes is illegal if that's what you meant. So there is no king and pawn ending here. The queen is hanging, the rook is gonna take back. Hey, Andras, how are you going, buddy? Wow, that is beauty. So she laid a very nasty trap there. Swindler. Andras, I don't have followage, but if you do this, that will show you what you can do with the commands. King back. Knight back, queen. Ooh, wait a second. Apparently this move is a game-losing blunder. Wow. Wow. Knight d5. Same story. Now the queen is covering this, so queen e4 is not possible. And after queen f2, e3, the pawn is now in motion. According to the engine, best is take, queen d5, king up, I guess, and queen takes b5 with a probable draw, but a very hard grind. Very hard grind. She went queen f3, e2, still winning for black. And instead of knight f4, he needed to play queen e5 and then knight f4. And this would have totally paralyzed the entirety of the white army. Still not easy to find a win here. Oh, okay. So instead, he cashed in a little too soon here. Queen d6 is the computer's favorite move, followed by king h1, king g7, just holding it. So the idea was here to hunt down a2, but this was really a way to bail out into a draw. And here Portisch again tried one more time, but this is now very easy to hold because the white pieces are extremely mobile. Yeah, and they agreed to draw here. Boy, I actually didn't go through this game, so I didn't quite know what was going on in this one. But one thing that I need to add is that white definitely did play like a grandmaster. So remember the one thing, we're talking here about a 14-year-old girl who is an international master playing as white against the greatest Hungarian legend alive. So that is very important that we understand the context. Okay, so now, actually, I just gathered a piece of information here for myself. What that means to me is that Judit was actually drawing the #1 number on the cross table. So if you are playing in a round robin, you are allocated a number depending on how many players there are. So if there are 10 players like this one, then you draw a number from 1 to 10, which basically is going to be your number, which then they manipulate to work out the draw. And if you draw #1, that means that you get 2 whites. So remember in the previous game she played against Susan, her sister, as white, and now again white. Ironically, she ended up the tournament, winning the tournament. Yeah, I didn't. The greatest Hungarian legend at the time. So then came chess coach Chandra. So yeah, she had 2 white games. So let's have a look at round 3 when she played against another Hungarian legend, Andras Adorjan, my namesake. Bugatti, how are you going? Yeah, it is a round robin. Of course it is a round robin. And this was a reasonably short draw. By the way, the tournament was so strong and the rating average was so high that for a Grandmaster norm, you hardly needed to do more than 50%. Just for the record. Okay, so Judit is black. She was a very, very keen King's Indian player, just like myself. G3. Now this is always a very wise and safe choice against vicious attackers, and there is a reason why fellow chessable content creator Christoph Selecki, aka Chess Explained, recommends this as the most logical choice against the King's Indian, because in most lines black doesn't get to attack at all. So, knight c6, this is one of the most common variations. Andras Adorjan is white against Judit Polgár. Knight c3, e5. Now this line has gone out of fashion a fair bit, and usually black here plays a6 with this very wonky idea of playing rook b8 and b5. The biggest main line is d5, knight a5, knight d2, c5. Really? Do I need that now? Okay, whatever. See ya. c5, queen c2, rook b8, b3, b5, bishop b2. This is basically the beginning of theoretical discussions. This is where theory starts. A few very famous games have been played for this position. Most notably, Petrosyan Spassky is one that you would like to check out if you are interested in the line. Galdur, you could say that this is chickeny style, but sometimes chickeny style is rewarding. Okay, so here e4 is meant to be best, conquering the center and then playing c5. He plays c5 right away. Another very typical move in this structure. So now we can't really take because then e5 drops. and that's just unpleasant. So knight e5, and note how now the bishop, knight, queen is guarding d5. Bugatti, everyone is listening, that's why the chat is a little bit inactive, but I would like to encourage questions and comments, so take it away, buddy. Knight e8 takes knight, interesting. Pawn takes is also a possibility, and then again either e4 or e4 is most logical for white. Knight d6, e4, c6. So now we are trading down into symmetrical structure, where this knight, so if the knight were here, we would be fully symmetrical, right? But knight on d6 is not that great, really. I mean, it attacks the pawn and covers that square, but it's a bit weird. Anyway, bishop g5 was played, bishop f6. Black is aiming to trade off the bad bishop. How much did my setup cost? I have no idea what you're talking about, Pa. Bishop f6 takes. Now, once again, bad bishop, good bishop. Bad bishop, good bishop. So here, bishop f6 makes perfect sense to me, because this is just a piece of junk here, or trash, or call it whatever, that has no power. So it's not really a good piece. So trading it off makes perfect sense. Take, h3 to prevent bishop g4. So now the respective problems are the d5 and the d4 square. And so black is aiming to trade and occupy. So in an ideal world, and I'm going to do a few doozies now just so that we understand who is playing for what. In an ideal world, this would be black's aim. Good knight, bad bishop. That's what black is trying to do. And so that's why white plays here h3, because they want to disallow the trade of the piece that covers the weak square. Rook d8, queen e2, so the knight is now incoming. And so she stops it. He wants to do it. And now she's piling up, he's piling up, and the trade arenas will begin. And offers draw. The position is dead even, absolutely symmetrical. A very logical conclusion, really, in a round robin situation where with black you tend to be cautious. So that was round 3. Round 4. Judit Polgár against Attila Grosspeter. Grosspeter was a superbly talented junior who somehow didn't quite manage to, I don't know how to put it politely, live up to the expectations. He was a very, very brilliant junior. I think he scored a silver medal in one of the under 20 world youth or stuff like that. Became a very young grandmaster early on, but somehow after that his career came to a halt. Oshki, if knight d5, we can just play around that. I can't go back now, but you just play queen f6, queen f7, and you can deal with that easily. So, what is Judit Polgár against Attila Grosspeter? Thank you, Backpulling, for the sub. And the Sicilian defense is already, in my opinion, a slight strategical mistake here, because Judit A loves attacking, and any player who loves attacking loves the Sicilian. I am one of the living examples of that. I love playing against the Sicilian because it's a very wholesome opening where you get to do lots of juicy stuff. Now this bishop d7 line was a pet variation of a lot of Hungarian grandmasters, including Grosspeter and István Chom, a very famous Hungarian grandmaster too, who was part of the Olympic gold medalist team in 1978 in Buenos Aires, and for a short time he actually was my coach too. Rook c8. So the idea here is that black wants to develop the queen side very quickly before he develops the king side. And very often he's actually looking forward to this trade, which compromises the structure but gives the two bishops to black. I analyzed this variation a fair bit myself, and there is a lot of fun stuff in it. So here, for example, I would like to show you a very cool trick in true Eric Rosen style, if you will. I have one in this position, an extremely large number of blitz games through a trick. And I really want you to pay attention to this because it's really cool. So the trick looks like this. E5, best move, so there's no trick here. Takes, takes, we're following the course of the game. And here, rook takes c3 is a commonly known motif that players really quite often go for. But this is actually totally false. And I have won a large number of games, mostly in blitz, with this trick of pretending really to fall for this knight e4 idea. Take, check, king f2, sorry, king queen takes, and here we have got the beautiful bishop b5 move winning the house. I would like to remind you now to my, I think, very first YouTube video for the series No-Die Classics, in which we are talking about this double rucksack, and after queen takes h1, queen takes b7 is putting the icing on the cake. The idea is that there is a mate threat here and a mate threat here. So if they play queen d1, it's checkmate. Now that is the motive that earned me about 5-6 blitz games at least. Unfortunately, no one really seems to fall for this in longer time control. So the way how it occurs is that they go for this exchange Saccharino too soon with rook c3, and then knight e4 takes, takes, and king f2. This is essentially over. The correct move here for black is e6 as per game. The idea is that f6 is actually not hanging, because then black takes the bishop. A very clever motif, very typical of this line. And now after takes, takes, the tables have turned, and black is totally winning. Superior development, 2 bishops, game over. So now it's white's turn to utilize the fact that this queen is attacking this way. And so after castles, bishop c6, we have got bishop, actually bishop b5 is one of the biggest theoretical lines, and so is knight b5. These two roller coaster, how are you going? These two are both traditional main lines, and the idea in both cases is that white wants to block off the 5th rank so that when they take, we can take. And this is actually the main theoretical line. Bishop c6, pawn h4, g6, bishop c4, and theory again begins hereabouts. Queen f4 and queen g4 are both theoretical moves. Very fascinating line. Instead, Judit transposed into a different variation by playing bishop c4, knight d7. It's a very, very sharp position again, so black really needs to look out for various tactical ideas. Most notably, no, actually, never mind. Okay, for example, bishop b4, then we have knight b5 stuff again, and then we take here. There is a variation that I wanted to show you. How is that? Some bishop b5, knight d5. Is there a line like this? There is somewhere a move where I take this. I can't remember which line that is. With the idea that if they take, there is a mate here. Oh, I need a knight on b5 for that. Okay, so maybe it's bishop... Oh, no, knight b5... Right, so if white was knight somewhere, where do I go? Yeah, that's it. Okay, knight e4, and now I have this. This is what I wanted to show you. And if takes, then knight c7 takes and mate. Woo! That is a cool motive. So this line is a landmine for black. But if you know what you're doing, then you can actually manipulate this landmine, or rather navigate it well enough so that Nostalgic, thank you for the follow. You can play it quite comfortably. So knight d7, rook e1. Perfect, beautiful development, but a little bit pointless in the sense that it's difficult now for fine to find a target. h6, bishop back. So now we have got various jumps on the agenda. Queen c5, very typical move of this variation. We're trying to offer a trade. Queen f4. Now we see a target. So finally, we can now figure out a way to go forward. g5, a very committal move. It basically makes castles this way impossible for the rest of the game, but it also opens up a winning chance for black by taking this. Queen f1, bishop g7, and h4. Judith is very aggressive. I don't think that I can state that enough times. Rook, no, we can't go rook f1, sir, because e5 is hurting very badly. So here queen takes e5. Welcome to the Retriever Trapper. So hence rook e1, h6 back, queen c5, queen f4, g5, queen back. And after bishop g7, she plays h4. She goes, fine, you want to take e5 and open up the e-file onto your king? Be my guest. And so she goes on the attack on the wing, kind of wanting to discourage castles, which I really like. Knight e5, and she just pulls back. And she goes like, right, I lost a central pawn, but now this makes perfect sense. The kingside castle is very risky. So what do, buddy? And note that this is a really awesome trademark of a lot of excellent attacking players, is that somehow they always end up in positions where they have got the attacking chances and the attack against their king seems unfathomable. If you look at Tal's games, he hardly ever got attacked. I mean, it has a lot to do with opening repertoire, but it also has a lot to do with mentality. So for Judith, the idea of losing this pawn, it's not that it wasn't a concern, it's like warmly welcome. Because that means that black is busy for at least 3 moves to not to attack on the queen side, but to hunt a pawn that will actually expose the black king itself. And so this is once again a typical trademark of a brilliant, vicious attacker that when it comes to material versus initiative, initiative wins every time, all the time. And you could tell me that according to the engine, black is doing fine, but then I would refer you to my book review video in which I talk about the fact that, well, computer's evaluation is not necessarily everything. All right, so there was a question which I somewhat ignored. Oh yes, bishop g2. So bishop g2 is defended here. And in general, you wouldn't want to take such pawns because you need to watch your king. So he castled. Take, take, take. Oh, sorry, queen e2. Sneaky little move. She wants to come up here. I expected bishop g5, but this is actually a terrible blunder. Chat, can you tell me why bishop g5 is a blunder? That's the question. Why is bishop g5 a bad blunder? Schmackmate with the correct answer. Bishop takes g5. Loose pieces drop off is the axiom from John Nunn. LPDO, which doesn't really make any sense to me because why is that a cool acronym? I don't know. But loose pieces drop off. It's an unguarded piece on the discovery of the queen. 93 check. And all of a sudden, the dark squared bishop is gone. And that makes the attack very complicated for white. Because to break up a king position like this without a dark squared bishop is very hard. Hence queen e2 with the idea of coming here. Once again, Judith is not fazed at all by material considerations. She wants attack. And she does attack. Note that now I believe rook e6 is already a game-winning threat. Am I correct? Yes, I'm correct. Rook e6. Beautiful. The idea is that if you take, I take with Ceccarino, and then I probably take this, and everybody is hanging. Even though I can't draw arrows to save my life, but you get it, the idea. So this is no kid's joke, guys. This is real stuff. Queen f5, g4, immediately kicking out the defender, chasing it away from the vicinity. Queen f6, and that is a game-losing blunder, according to the engine. Queen f2 is the recommended move by the mighty machine, and I can only guess that the idea is to force a trade. So if rook e6, oh no, knight f4. Wow, and if bishop takes, we can take back with check. Not bad, chat, not bad. Not bad at all. And after take king here, now black has the momentum to trade and to occupy the open files. And all of a sudden black is doing really well. Wow. Okay, so queen f6. Terrible move. Bishop takes g5. The plan was, of course, knight f4. But it doesn't work because after queen here, now knight g2 is met by bishop takes f6 and black is losing a piece. And as a result of that, black is losing a piece no matter what. I don't know where the blunder came from. What did he miss? What did he miss? Did he think that this was losing to something like rook? I don't know, man. Like, what did he think? Like, this is already totally fine for black. Yeah, this is a very strange blunder. Because I just can't put a finger on what part of it was not clear to him. Because this is definitely not a grandmaster level chess to recognize here that one of these guys are gonna drop. That is unfathomable. I mean, I'm not saying that I wouldn't have blundered it, but I'm trying to figure out why a grandmaster would not play this move. And I'm coming up with no answer. Rook e2, queen here. I mean, okay, this is not exactly a Picasso painting when it comes to beauty, but this is playable. This is totally playable. I don't know, this is a bit of a mysterious blunder, and bang. That's all she wrote. He wanted to defend e6. Yeah, but see, the trickery is that, well, it is possible that they blundered this. But then again, considering the fact that that was his prepared move against bishop g5, it's hard to believe that he wouldn't have seen the same move here. Calculation horizon. I don't know. I don't know, man. Anyway, that's a mystery for someone else to work out. So we are fee praise up. She trades the queens and converts without any dramas. The pawn doesn't matter at all. Now bishop g6 again is met by rook g6 or bishop e6. So no worries. Yep. Take. And black resigns. It's quite beautiful that after takes king anywhere on the h, we don't take the rook, we go for the mate. So now this puts Judit out of 4 games on 2.5 points, which in terms of performance is already a grandmaster performance. So far she has played her sister. I don't know if she was a GM at the time, probably not yet. Then she played Grandmaster Adorjan, draw, Grandmaster Portisch, draw, Grandmaster Grosspeter, win. And because of the rating average of these 4 players is such, that is already a performance rating and performance points, in terms of points, is a Grandmaster level. Okay, next round. We are playing Ivan Farago, a very solid, very knowledgeable opening theoretician, a tough dude to beat, especially when you are on the black side of the chessboard. So let's see how this went. I actually don't have any recollection of this game at all. Judit is black, King's Indian. That was her go-to. King's Indian defense, main line, and Farago also famously is known for playing main line variations. Goes for the Gligorich variation, although the Gligorich variation is more so bishop e3 here, but it's also valid here. So now knight g4 is the most commonly known move. ed4 is a sideline, which is not that great. Almost everyone plays here knight g4. Here is a little note for any chess player at all out there who is ambitious about themselves in chess. Anytime you put a bishop on e3 or e6 and knight g4 or knight g5 respectively is possible, you need to calculate the consequences. A good example of that, and I don't want to brag, but I need to show you this because I was quite proud of this. Yesterday I played a game where for funsies I played a perk, which I occasionally choose to throw in, correctly known as the Pirz. My opponent played that, which was a bit of a rubbish move. Ahmad 111111, thank you for the follow. I castled, he played something like bishop d3, I played knight c6, he played this. I played e5 and he played bishop e3. Hello political. And here, although I do believe that black has many good moves, I instantly played knight g4. With the idea of takes, and now we have a fork. And I went on to win this game without any dramas. Anyway, back to knight g4, bishop g5, f6, bishop back to c1. Bishop h4 is the other main line here. Bishop c1, f5. So now the position becomes very, very volatile in the center. Lots of possible captures. This is really Judith's style. When, yeah, h3 is theory, but a3 isn't. Sorry, I put the emphasis on the wrong bunny ears. Mind you, I wouldn't play that, but that's a different story. So yeah, this is typical Judith style. Very, very intense, sharp fight right away out of the opening. Knight e7, the engine likes here knight d4. And there's a big theoretical line here that goes with takes, takes, knight b5. And this is actually a pawn Saccharino here with d4, but then we take e4. So takes and then d3. And after takes, 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 bishop takes f5. Once again, a very typical position for Judith's style. Black has sacked the pawn. Cubbins Bartholomew, thank you for the follow. But now the bishops are viciously active and white appears to be rather planless. Very interesting concept. Anyway, she went knight e7, knight g5, knight back to f6. So now this is beginning to look like a bayonet main line. He plays takes. I think this is a safe option in the sense that obviously f3, f4 would have led to some kind of Sicilian. Sheredic is the next follower. Thank you. Mainline Sicilians were b4. I reckon it actually would have transposed directly into the bayonet attack, which, by the way, back at the time when this game was played, was not in the height of fashion at all. So this is very interesting to observe that now we go like, oh yeah, this is the bayonet and every man and his dog. Thank you for the follow, blah blah black sheep. Knows really, really well that this is the theory, and then the knight comes in and c5 and all that shebang. We are in 1991, where King's Indian players almost exclusively played here, mostly following Korchnoy's extremely deep understanding of the mainline King's Indian, which is ridiculously sharp and quite often gets mated if they are careless. Sometimes even if they are careful, or later on, largely due to the incredible success of players such as Lukács and Belyavsky, the knight d2 line became incredibly popular. But definitely there was no bayonet attack yet on the horizon to cast a very dark shadow over the King's Indian. Alright, so he took, knight took back, both recapture is valid. Usually when you take with the knight, you take a concession of giving up e4 forever. But also we are conquering the d4 square. Bishop d3, trying to control the square, knight d4, knight e2. So that wants to trade and then go back in. I don't know if I'm being a little bit nasty by saying this, but the last couple of moves by Farago tells me that he wanted to draw this. So it's very apparent that he's basically trying to trade and kill play in the game. Yeah, see, look at the chases. He just wants to trade, trade, trade. Okay, in it went, trade, take. h6, knight e4, queen f7. To be fair, white is doing really well here because now I can't get in there due to that. Okay, knight back, very weird decision. b3, bishop a3 seems to make a lot of sense to me. But also white needs to look out for this pawn, which currently is immune because of the pin. Bishop d7, very logical developing move. Now the rook can join the fray, OG. Knight d4, take, take. Once again, white, but just trades every time they can. And now the position has fizzled into a dead draw. Opposite colored bishop, structurally somewhat better for white. but very unlikely that anyone can win this. Yeah, and I think I will spare you from the rest.